I put rum in mine, so yo.
If anybody needs to go to the large drawer in my desk, right? Jeff is out of the room. If anybody needs to go to the large drawer in my desk, and we have not officially started the meeting, so I can say these things. Are you recording me already?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't say anything.
It's being recorded.
Slimmer and slimmer.
This is kind of. But I think now that I think about it, a couple of schools are on spring break this week.
Yeah, we
I
are.
say Greenville's on spring break.
Yeah, I wonder if that's where some people are.
I always take all of the old.
All right, good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Appreciate everybody being here and the folks online. Thank you for being with us. I expect a couple more may join us in person or certainly online. Today, we're getting very close to the final product of all our hard work and endeavors. So we'll be reviewing the drafts of the plan, the executive summary, and the two-page summary sheet. And we will plan for our public meetings. So should be a good discussion on all accounts. With that, I would like would accept a motion for approval of our agenda.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, nay? The ayes have it. I would also accept a motion for approval of the February 19th minutes and summary.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Announcements and water SC update. So on March 5th, there was a tabletop exercise done by DNR. Hope Mizell, Dr. Hope Mizell really hosted the meeting, and it was all about drought and how we would manage drought. They gave some scenarios and then talked about what responses would be. This was really a follow-up to the meeting that was last done about 3 years ago. Is that right? Was it?
I thought it was 2019. It was later.
I think you're right. 19 wasn't 3 years ago.
Like they wanted to do one because I hadn't done one for a while.
Yeah, this was I was there. It was a good process. I was at the last one, quite frankly. The last one, I think, didn't go far enough in the scenarios. It was more of an entry level. This one got a little bit more in depth. And of course, you know, with the drought laws that we have, and as we've discussed in here with our plans and what the recommendations we have for drought, at some point the governor can declare an emergency, and then all bets are off and we do what the governor says. I'd like my desire would be the next exercise delve a little more into that, because I don't know if we as a state really know what that looks like and how it would unfold. So is there anything else you wanted to add on the?
I was just going to ask for you or any other RBC members that attended, did it make you think of any additional or modifications to drought related recommendations that you got in your plan?
No, I shared some aspects of our plan. Communication is going to be key in these events, as our plan identifies. And again, our plan and the recommendations take us to a point. I think there's still So in one of the scenarios, they had, we were in, extreme level of drought, but they threw a, nuance of, and Lake Greenwood was having a harmful algal bloom. Which would render the way I read it, would render the water unpotable. And how do we handle that? And that is a course of a completely different color, for our organization, for any organization that would be in the state, because then you are, more than likely keeping water in the pipes, but there's value in wet water. There's, certainly sanitation that can occur, but there is a, level of, public awareness that would certainly be heightened. And then if you start having to ship water in, just the issues of how you disperse that, that again, that was a good mental exercise for me, but what that really looks like moving forward and how because my response is at that point, we're calling the governor, because that is going to take more organizations to handle that situation. So again, it was thought-provoking for us. Of course, in the past year, there have been some large water systems in the country that have lost production of water, and how they addressed it. And we all like to think we're bulletproof, but I think our level of risk is much greater than we all realize sometimes.
Did they, and when you had the drought exercise, there was wildfires going on at the same time. Did they talk about that at all? And
Well, they talked about it very matter-of-factly because we were at the state's IOC, and because of the wildfires they're having down on the coast, it was actively addressing those. So there were people inside rooms addressing the wildfire issues while we were doing this tabletop exercise. And yeah, so that I don't recall if that was really brought into the scenario on paper, but it was discussed because of the reality of what was going on.
I guess I was curious, was there a discussion of water demand related to putting out wildfires? Is there a scenario that looked at that?
Not so much. Of course, there's limited access to a lot of water and pipes for that. Even as rural as our lines are in the back roads, there's just often even though we have service out there, we don't have fire service. So there was some talk about hauling in water, but I think a lot of that then gets into airdrops and things along those lines. Good. All right. There is a water SC meeting tomorrow down in Columbia from 1 to 4:30. I'll be there. I think they are going to continue their work, but they have also identified that they want to talk about goals and mission statements for the group, and kind of where they're starting, in my opinion, to fall in the pattern that the framework had developed for us. Some of the early steps, getting the information, getting educated. Again, they're doing it on a very tight time frame, but there is an effort along those lines. They've also announced that, you see the dates there, April 8th, 9th, and 10th. They'll be having listening sessions statewide, kind of like what they did down at the farmers market, where it's open to the public, so the public can voice their opinions on what's going on. I don't believe those have been identified in locations yet. That's still to be announced, and hopefully that will come out tomorrow. If it is, I'll certainly share that with the group because if one's convenient for you, I think it would be a good thing to go and voice your opinion. Additionally, the state legislative group, I believe, has their next meeting. I want to say it's April 3rd. I just saw that this morning. And they will get an update from Water SC and do the work they're going to do. I haven't seen an agenda for that meeting.
That's all I have.
Okay. Is Melanie on?
Online, yes.
Unfortunately, Melanie's not here in person with us. And equally fortunate that she is online, but next time you see Melanie, please congratulate her. This year, she is being recognized at the Forever Green event by Upstate Forever that will occur on April 22nd as the 2025 Clean Water Champion for our state through that organization. It's quite a kudos to her. So please, when you see Melanie, and Melanie, congratulations. We're very proud of you. Some of us will be there to see you on the 22nd, but if you have an opportunity to join for that event, please do. If not, again, please extend Melanie your heartfelt congratulations.
She said, thank you, Casey.
That's it. All right, well, with that, Joe had to hear me far too long this morning. I will turn it over to John.
Public and agency comment, any member of the public online or agency folks in the room want to make comments? Hearing nothing, so I want to turn it back to Casey and Catherine. They wanted to do a toast, I think.
Yeah, let's do it. Do you want to say?
I've talked enough.
Okay. All right, well, this might be our last in-person meeting before we probably will meet virtually next week or next month, and then we'll have our May or early June presentation to the public for the first 30 days. So I just came up with this idea and thought that we should give a little toast. So last week I had the opportunity, who knows Robert Osborne? Yeah, so when Robert Osborne comes up and is like, hey, can you do this thing? You're like, do I want to do that thing? But then he's impossible to say no to. So I actually ended up giving a presentation at SCEC last week about our progress because there was a hole in the schedule and last minute they needed somebody to just like get up and give a 30-minute presentation. So I was like, yeah, sure. Thanks. Jeff was in the room making sure that I didn't screw up, I'm sure. But I started giving kind of a similar presentation that I had given last year, only just updating everything. And then kind of at the end, I decided to do musings of an at-large member. And at the very end, I just kind of spoke about just there's so much gratitude and just this element of feeling really humble, having gone through this process for the last 2 years with all of you. And so I wanted to have a toast. So everybody grab their wine glass. If you're online, get some water. You have 5 seconds to do so. Hopefully you have some in front of you already. And I just cheers to you. Cheers to all of you for showing up, for being a part of this process, for being engaged, for being willing to learn. I like to use the phrase, we should all be forever sponges. And I think that everybody in this room has been willing to do that. And I'm really grateful for that. And so hopefully whatever we have come up with ripples into some making waves here in the state, and we get to have an positive impact on water as we move forward. And so I would like to cheers to water, which will be good to go down after this toast. Thank goodness. So toast to all of you. Thank you so much, and cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you, Kaylee, for supplying us with Rewa's effluent this morning. I really appreciate it. After you already said. No, this is Greenville's finest, which comes out of my tap. I do want to do a quick photo. So if everybody could just like get up and move kind of to the center with your wine glass. Grab your wine glass. You're in it too. You're in it too.
I finished my wine already.
This is why I brought a tripod. Yeah, too bad. You're in it too. Okay, so you gotta be in the middle. Squeeze in. Both rows is fine. We can like figure it out. We're gonna get rid of the desks here. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is actually terrible. Because all of you are. See, I can get it higher. No, it's not gonna go. All right, maybe if I go closer. This will help. Yeah, okay. That's it. I should have practiced this. Okay. Squeeze in. Squeeze in. And I'm gonna need that first row to sorority squat a little. Casey, you're not in it yet.
Perfect.
Yeah, do you guys all know what that means?
Oh, do I have to get my knees?
Sit on chairs?
Yeah, it's front row, sit on chairs.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Front row, sit down. Good call. See, this is why we're teamwork makes the dream work. I love it.
I don't know who's this is, so.
Okay, so I've got,
Mind if we move your bag? No, go around.
I've got Casey to Thompson.
Move it.
Here,
I'm gonna go a little wider. You move the chair. Okay. This is good. This is good. This is looking good. I went wide angle, so we got a little bit more. Okay, I am going to, you're in it. Everybody's in it. This is good.
Where are you gonna
The
be?
only person I can't see is Rob and Grooms. I need you to find a better hole here. Okay, awesome. And I'm gonna come sit right there. Move this. Everybody's got their wine glass, raise it up a little. Okay. This is gonna be good. Okay, ready? Okay.
We're gonna Photoshop wine and all your glasses.
Let's see if she makes it. Wow.
Nice. Okay, if any of you blinked, you're in trouble. Let's try this one more time just in case. We're just gonna do another one. Okay.
Called grandma waiting for a flash with something.
Smile.
Run, Forrest.
Nice.
Very good.
Thanks for entertaining me.
All of you.
Enjoy your rainbow water.
Started it.
Yeah.
Warren. Focus. Say rainbow water.
Charlie said beautiful.
That stuff more means anything. You don't want anything to do with that.
All right, let's move on and we're going to talk about the final comments on the plan, the executive summary, the two-page summary sheet, and then we're going to look at the public meeting presentation. We're going to start with final comments on the plan, and we'll let you know how we're going to do the address any final comments, the schedule for that first. I think I sent out an email last week with a number of chapters. 1, 7, 9, and 10, I believe. Since then, I've circulated 4 again because I'm not sure I sent it out after we addressed a round of comments. We're going to take your comments until Friday, March 28th on those draft chapters. So you've seen individual chapters for now. In fact, several of them you've seen multiple rounds of comments. I sent you the comment log. Any other comments you have on those chapters, give them to me no later than 28th. Once we get those, we'll take up to a week and we'll address those comments, put it all into a draft plan that then I'm going to circulate. It's going to have all the appendices. It's going to have the upfront acknowledgements, table of contents, list of acronyms, anything else that goes up front. And no later than April 7th, you're going to get the opportunity to see everything all together as a draft plan. That'll be a week and a half before our next meeting, which will likely be virtual. So you'll have a week and a half to review it. I'm gonna still give you the opportunity in that week and a half to say, hey, could we consider one little tweak to this word or that word, or I still see you misspelled this. But we're not gonna make any wholesale changes, obviously. And we're not gonna add recommendations at that point. It's just gonna be final tweaks that you wanna see before you do the test of consensus, before you vote on the plan on April 16th. That makes sense? So you got till Friday, March 28th for any comments that we'll log. We'll send out our full report by the 7th. We're gonna vote on the 16th. Any questions? All right. There's just a few things I want to talk about with regard to the plan that have kind of come in last minute. One of them I circulated yesterday or the day before, I think it was yesterday morning. And it was Rick Huffman's idea about tree canopy. So if you recall back to this recommendation that we debated over the span of 2 or 3 meetings. Originally, this recommendation was multiple recommendations. We consolidated it into one, and we had a whole list of BMPs. Tree canopy protection, tree protection was one of those at one point. It got removed from the list for one reason or another.
I think it got removed because it was like ordinances and not tree canopy protection. It was like
That may have
having
been it.
ordinances.
Yep, yep. So that specificity, I think, kind of got it
Correct.
removed. And I think Rick may have not been at one of those meetings, so we didn't hear his voice at that time. And he raised the point, hey, tree canopy protection is very important. So I asked him to put together a proposed recommendation for consideration to see if we want to add something about prioritizing tree canopy protection in the headwaters of streams and along riparian areas. So this is Rick's proposed recommendation. There's a little bit of narrative that Rick also provided that supports that recommendation. Rick, I want to give you the opportunity to talk to it as well and explain why you think that's important and should be part of this plan. And then we'll hear from the RBC.
Well, in that statement up there kind of speaks for itself, I think. I also provided in the document, links, abstracts that have been well documented across the country about the value of trees in protecting water quality, water quantity, and particularly surface water. And so the abstract that I submitted called Faucets to Forest speaks very clearly and very plainly about the value of protecting our headwaters and our streams, so tree protection for water quantity. Okay, and so surface water. And so I think these abstracts really speak well for what I'm trying to say here and what I'm trying to put. And I'll just read a little bit of these abstracts. Forests are critically important to the supply of clean drinking water in the Northeast and Midwest portions of the United States. And so these statements are just really profound, and I think they state it very eloquently. In the Southeast, the same statement. In this abstract called Quantifying the Role of National Forest Systems, Lands, and Providing Surface Drinking Water Supply for the Southern United States. So the first sentence says forests and water are inextricably linked, and people are dependent on forested lands to provide clean, reliable water supplies for drinking and support for a local economy. And so if you look at the current state of the canopy in Greenville County, which is the headwaters of the Saluda River Basin, you're down to 38% canopy. And so, that's just not sustainable for protecting clean water and not in the supply of water. I know we've been talking about quantity versus quality, but those two things are inextricably linked. And our forests and protecting our riparian zones and our headwaters is important. Greenville County is really lucky in that our watershed is protected. It's 100% protected. Not all watersheds have that luxury. So I think having this statement in here places trees and the importance of trees and canopy protection and our headwater streams is important. So that's the reason I wanted to think.
Thank you, Rick.
And if you go and follow these links that I put in the Word document that everyone got, you can read those abstracts, you can read those data. And I think the data, particularly, and you look at the charts, the graphs in there, you look at across the southeast region, the areas that need forested areas to protect their watershed, you look at those graphs, you look at those color codes in there, our region is the most sensitive and the need for watershed protections in Creek County. It's very supportive.
Comments, questions from the RBC?
Let me say this, I agree with everything that Rick says back here about the value of trees and forests. And quite frankly, I would even go a lot farther than that, but any kind of permanent vegetative cover or even just applying conservation farming methods should be encouraged. And even to the point that, some of this is gonna be public land, some of it's gonna be owned by organizations and companies, and some of it's gonna be privately held, and there needs to be incentives in place, some kind of financial incentives in place for people to keep this land in covered, permanent forest or permanent cover. In Greenville County, while they're lucky about their forested areas up there, on the same token, Greenville County collects huge amounts of stormwater fees, but nobody can find out what Greenville County's doing. So why aren't these stormwater fees they're collecting being used to preserve some of these permanently covered areas into our watershed areas? Exactly like Rick's talking about here, even if it's just funding more permanent conservation easements upstate where I live. So anyway, I agree with all that. My only reservation is, is it more about quality than quantity? I mean, we're stuck to quantity all along. So if we're going in that direction, I would even like to go farther than what Rick's proposed.
And when you say go farther, you mean like add in information about incentivize these measures, incentivize BMPs and associated free chemical protection. That generally what you're suggesting.
Permanent vegetative cover, I mean, I would go as far as that permanent vegetative cover.
Okay.
Could we say tree canopy, including permanent vegetative cover? Because there's certainly more of a emphasis on grasslands, keeping those in natural state that, 15 years ago really wasn't talked about except in very small groups now.
If that's all right, Rick, I don't know what.
I
say.
Well, when you say permanent vegetative cover, what that really implies also goes back to our talking about riparian issues as well. And because, there's these early successional, I call grasses and forbs and those type of things, they serve a integral role in holding these riparian areas together. The trees, along with grasses and native grasses, have deep roots. They provide not only the cover, but they provide the stability to hold everything together. And so I think the permanent vegetation cover is, I think, very well stated, and I 100% accept that as part of this statement.
An online suggestion is to add the word native in front of vegetation or tree canopy.
I'm all for that.
I'm going, y'all against planning fine,
I'm gonna go to the but. First of all, the watershed you're talking about, we're proud of it, we take care of it, and we believe everything you said. But I also know this phase was shown, and I know you're tired of this. This is quality only. This is a quality of water.
I disagree with that.
I know you do.
I disagree with
That's
that.
okay, let me finish it. I know you disagree with that, but the problem is that this is gonna be taken care of in the next phase of these discussions in these groups. The quality, I'll be all over quality when quality is the most important thing, but right now, I'm gonna have the but to I don't think this should be in there at all. And that's, and again, remember, I am not against quality water or protecting.
I don't agree with that word you said.
I will disagree with that from one standpoint, that there
Data
is
says
documented
different.
research that tree canopy does affect water storage, which is quantity,
It's
not
not a quality
quality.
issue.
It may not be substantive, and quantity may not be an issue in this watershed based on our modeling, but I will disagree that tree canopy is only a water quality issue. It is both a water quality and quantity matter. And from the quantity standpoint, I think there is merit in a recommendation such as this, whether it be purely tree canopy or maintaining vegetative cover. That's up to debate.
And you're right, it's up to debate, and 80% of it is quality, we're on a quantity. Again, I don't disagree with anything you said. I'm an ag engineer, I know exactly the things you're talking about. The point is that I have direct instructions and responsibilities to keep this on quantity only. This is, so you're gonna say there's quality to this, I can't agree with it. And I agree that you're right, but this is not this was not the group. There is gonna be other groups that are gonna take this stuff on headlong, and at that point, that's the time we do it, and then it gets wrapped into the whole plan. And
This data says everything about water quantity.
it's not a
It's
substantial,
important.
there's not a substantial amount of water quantity in that. This is mostly quality. And but the point, I'm not gonna argue with you, because there is quantity in it, but this is mostly quality, and you guys know I'm against the anything that has to do with the quality of this plan. I'm all about quality in the water. And we do more than almost any,
Because you have the luxury of having 100% protected watershed.
not the
That's
luxury,
what
it
you
was forethought and planning. And then there's millions of dollars that goes into my watersheds every year to maintain that. We understand that. But this was not what we were assigned to do. I agree with you. I don't disagree with you, so
But you know the importance of having clean water for your needs. The watershed is almost the Saluda watershed includes those two little pockets. But it's the rest of from Greenville all the way down. And if we can endorse the ability to keep that water flowing, the rest of the watershed, not just the protected watersheds. You're right, they're protected for high quality, but also for volume. Because we've already talked about the issues with silting in, if you don't have good protection and losing.
if we cut down every tree in the watersheds, there will be so much quantity you would not understand it. So tell me how the trees are a significant amount of quantity.
I tell you what.
They are a significant amount
So
of
the
quality.
Forest to Faucets paper, go read it. It talks about all those issues. It's a strong program. The federals have put money behind it. But Jeff,
I agree with you 100%. You're talking to the choir.
I
have an
understand
issue
your,
so I am adamant against this. So then, and nothing you're gonna say today is gonna change my mind.
How can you be adamantly against that, but you're not adamantly against the one on slide 8?
So, yeah, that's what I was gonna
Well,
bring up for.
I was not in a right mind on that.
I mean, you already agreed on it.
Yeah.
And we talked about this one for 3 meetings.
So we agreed, I mean, there's 3 steps, there's full consensus.
Yes.
There's stuff that I can live with, and there's stuff that I'm adamantly against.
Yep.
This was not a full consensus, that was more of I can live with it, because I got tired of being bashed. And I'm not upset, and I agree with everything you said. I'm glad we are in this group, but the point is that this is purely quantity. We do the best we can to provide the most quantity out of our watershed.
If tree cover and things are not done, drive up, Little Lake's down 5.5 feet right now. drive up and look at what we're working with. That's not gonna be quality, that's gonna be quantity, if something's not done, and normally I would be 100% with you on the quality versus quantity thing. I'm all for that, we need quantity and then we don't have to worry about quality. But drive up and look at that lake right now, and you'll see what we're dealing with.
I know what we're talking about. I drove back here.
Well, 25 feet from our intake right now, there's an island because of it being down this far, and it'll be down that way for a couple more weeks. What is it gonna look like 5 years from now? And there needs to be stream bank restoration and some, coverage put in. Or you're gonna have a lake that doesn't exist anymore, and it's not just for water, it's for everything.
But, I mean, Jeff's pretty adamant. I don't think we're gonna convince Jeff. What we can do, done on some of the recommendations, is we can indicate where there's a majority and then who voted against it if you'd like. So I don't
Can we
think we're
see
gonna.
if we have
come to
any
consensus
comments
on
online
this.
real quick before?
Yeah, Tom, is there any comments online based on the discussion?
Sure. I strongly agree. With the disastrous Rapanos decision last year, we have lost federal protection of the critical headwaters and other waters necessary to protect downstream water supplies. Suggesting add the word native in front of vegetation and tree canopy. Tree canopies play a crucial role in protecting water quantity by intercepting rainfall, reducing runoff, and promoting infiltration.
It sounds like Melanie.
You would be correct. Kevin also supports the proposal.
So I will,
Continue to work on this. Why have native in there? When you're against planted pines or any other? kind of
They
tree?
against my Bradford pears.
Yeah, well, I'm against your breath.
Leave my Bradford pears alone.
I feel like that's like dying this week.
Rick, do you want to speak to native and why you prefer?
Well, I mean, the thing about natives are that they support a lot of, we can talk, they have, typically, their natives have a deeper, more renounced root system, and renounced canopy system. I'm not against pine trees are cool. We got shortwave pine, we got a lot of good pine trees that work in certain areas. So I think that the word native just implies that, you know, what would be the alternative to native? Would it be Bradford pear? Would it be something like this and call it riparian? Well, it wouldn't be. And so I think the word native implies that we use the natural cover that I call it ecosystem services. Natives provide ecosystem services way beyond just, you know, the water quantity, water quality issues. They provide a lot of ecosystem services for cleaning our water as well as protecting our water.
So to address Jeff's comment, again, one of the challenges is ecosystem services is stepping a little bit outside of the quantity and going into quality. It would be good if we could focus this on quantity,
Or
because there is documented evidence that vegetative cover does. The changes in vegetative cover do affect quantity, maybe not substantially. But in some basins, maybe not ours, in some basins is critical, and who knows, looking down the horizon when quantity may not be. Maybe become a critical factor even in this basin.
So an inside look at SC Water. Some of the comments made by SC Water members have been that the RBCs have been throwing so much S on the wall. And they're gonna scrape a lot of it off. And that is what's really got me triggered and upset, is that a lot of stuff that we're doing now is gonna get scraped off by SC Water and the legislature. And that is my point for trying to keep our basin as not being one that gets scraped off.
I'm gonna give a in the middle assessment. I've said this before, I do a lot of shoreline inspections for Dominion. 4 or 5 times a year, hundreds of miles, it seems like. Lakes as well, Lake Murray, I've been all the way around that whole thing a bunch of times. And when you don't have trees, you do have shoreline erosion. We can't avoid it, if something's there, it sort of stabilizes the embankment. Part of this argument is that a tree serves two functions. It serves a function of water quality for sure. And if the tree's not there, it reduces the amount of quantity by erosion. So if we wrote something and it just focused on water quantity, you'd still be talking about the tree as part of the stabilization measure so that your lake doesn't impound with sediment or the river doesn't impound with sediment. And it would probably, for those that are really just high on not having water quality as a part of the argument, it still satisfies both, though one is not mentioned in the ensuing document. Doesn't mean that it's not still there, it's still there, it's just not focused on, it's not part of the highlighted message of this group, though it will be highlighted on it later. So even if you scrubbed out the word water quantity is still a part of it because the tree is doing two functions. Or shrub or whatever you want to call it. Whatever kind of argument about species you want to make, that's fine. But the tree itself with a root system is going to stabilize that and make, and you don't have to go very far to learn that. From the hurricane, we had 25 foot of sediment in front of two of our hydro plants, and we are having to pay to have it removed. Millions of dollars to get it out of the river. So it does serve a water quantity in that regard.
In a storage capacity.
In a storage capacity.
So for structural stability, would you weigh based on what you've seen, more value to structural stability of the reservoir by having trees and canopies and
Sure it
than
is.
you would necessarily overall water quality?
Yes, and FERC insists that we do these inspections, and if we find issues, even if it's on somebody else's land, they will make us pay for it a lot of times. If it's severe,
How do they enforce that, making you pay for
they can pay for it because they're FERC.
The project boundary is a real thing.
Wow.
I'll add my
Yeah, it is.
I'll add my 2 cents is that one, it's a water resource that we are in charge with protecting. You really can't, I think we can all agree, you can't sort of take a surgeon's scalpel out to water quantity from water quality and separate them and only focus on water quantity. The two are so interrelated. So, yeah, I think our charge is to have a strong focus on quantity. But if we also make recommendations that should help water quality, then that's really good. The second thing is I'll give you an example of how vegetation and tree cover helps water quantity. And that is, it helps when it rains to absorb a higher percentage of the rainfall into the ground, which supports a longer sustained base flow from the groundwater into the streams and into the storage, into the lakes. And so that's the best really way to drop proof an area is these long sustained infiltrations of water into the groundwater that then supports the flow. So, but I would be in favor of this issue.
Well, we've had good discussion about this. You want to, well, everybody comfortable with having the word native in there?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody comfortable with the language as it is? Native, other language, everything we put in there, permanent vegetative cover.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Let's just do a vote on it then, and we may, it sounds like we probably have a majority, so we'll probably document this like we have 4 or 5 other recommendations where there was a majority and why there was a potential minority, and explain both sides of the issue.
Well, I would. So what's in bold is one thing. I think the unbolded certainly can be written to address what Phil was just talking about, the quantity issue better.
Okay, we
So I don't think it impacts the bold statement, but I think the justification can be written more quantity driven.
This is gonna, I'm hesitant to mention this, it's gonna throw a monkey wrench in some of this, but we talked about this as part of the Edisto River Basin planning process. Jeremy Walter, who was a farmer, brought up the fact that he said, well, a lot of the forest areas around the Edisto River use more water than agriculture does. And we talked about that, and we ended up having Dr. Devinda Amatra come in and from the Forest Service, because he studied this type of thing. And Scott Harder, jump in if I say something that's incorrect. I'm thinking back 3 or 4 years now, but Dr. Amatra said, well, yes, based on my studies, the hardwood forests around the Edisto River through transpiration use more water than the crops do. Jeremy's point was that, why don't we just cut down the trees? And he was speaking facetiously, but you could cut down the trees and grow crops, but you'll have more water that way because the trees are transpirating that water. They need that water to grow. And I mean, based on what Dr. Amata said, is basically right. Those trees are using more water than the crops would.
But I don't think the crop lands, unless you're down on the coast where you can get infiltration to the deeper levels. So up here, you don't get that, so that base flow component isn't the same down on the coast as it would be up here. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't read the forest faucet program right before we came in here, but I think between that and the forestry endowment a few years back, they wrote a paper based around economic drivers, really around the 2 different supplies at Greenville that help support that forestry canopy as well. So
that may be the case. Yeah, this was specific to the studies that Devendra done in the coastal plain area.
Exactly.
National Forest Service lands.
I mean, I have observed that we had a study that we put a bunch of shallow water piezometers in and put recorders on it. And every morning you see when the trees cut in, you'd see a drop in the water table. And then every evening when they shut off, it'd start to recover, but it was, we could see it, man. We're talking foot, almost 1.5 feet.
They really have those trees there.
So, I mean, I witnessed it.
Well, Casey, we can add to the narrative to support the recommendation, as Rick suggested, and as we tweaked it to emphasize the other primarily non-quality related benefits of tree canopy protection. So we can work on that a little bit.
And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm not a hard no, I can live with this, but I don't support it. Yeah, so.
Well,
I mean, even I have concerns with us, in my comments I made, I look forward to us, hopefully this group addressing quality at some point, because I'm like Jeff, I'm big on quality over here, but I just want to keep it in the proper framework.
well, Jeff, because you may be the only dissenter if we do a good vote, do you want to live with it like you could live with this one, where we actually had a consensus?
Oh, I got 2 votes.
Okay,
It's got 3 votes.
okay.
I
Well,
mean, okay. And I realize this is a heated thing for some people. I mean, you can see what we do. We're all about quality. We're doing 319s outside the watershed to increase quality and quantity down the stream. But again.
but you just said to increase quality and quantity.
For 319, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, but I am not, again, I can live with it, but I need people to know that our mission was quality only. It wasn't, and I understand the mixture of, quality and quantity go together, but we were tasked with quantity only.
Well,
It's
no.
not that black and white in the framework, but
In the
we've covered
framework
that in
it-
this, in this
Okay,
room
I'm an
many times.
engineer, it is black and white.
It's not though,
Okay,
it
thanks,
says,
mate.
it literally in the framework says quantity can be addressed to the extent of every RBC's purview.
Who else manages
Quality,
their
yeah.
own riparian rights?
What?
Who else manages, who else in here manages their own riparian rights or own?
Well, we do
riparian
around
zone,
Lake
their own
Raven.
reservoir? I'm sorry?
We do around the lake.
Raven.
Yep.
I just wonder how hard it's gonna be. I mean, I know it's not a reg, it's just a recommendation. That is to make,
Enforce
Like,
it, yeah, that's gonna be a difficult
you know,
situation.
you got a perk issue, you got a core issue, you got whoever control the deal.
Well, and again, this is just recommending, so right now Lawrence County is talking about zoning. This just says that that should be a part of a conversation. You know, that the RBC, in order to emphasize quantity in our county, as far as the planning commission or the commission is concerned, they should look at ways to enact this to improve quantity. It's not saying thou shalt, it's not saying we're gonna tell you how to do that. It's saying we think this is an important aspect of how a watershed should be managed. And we want you to consider it in your deliberation.
I agree with you 100%.
Yep, and that's all this is
That's all it
saying.
says.
Except,
Well,
that's not what, again. Never mind, I mean, it's gonna be in there, it's not gonna be unanimous, but it's something that I can live with.
Sure.
And that was the same thing with riparian buffers. I mean, the problem is trying to get the quality out of me because I'm focused on it every day. And then, so, again, it is something that I can live with. I just worry about somebody who's more radical than me. Throwing out whole swaths of this.
Well, plus, not only the quality versus quantity side of this, it bothers me when you're sitting there talking about land use plans and county governments and municipalities. All it says is that they prioritize native tree canopy protection. Does that mean they're just gonna pass an ordinance where you can't cut it down? Which, I mean, I'm for.
I can't tell you how a county's
I'm
gonna vote.
for incentivizing,
Yeah,
So Greenville County,
Like my rights as a private citizen, private landowner.
Yep.
Out there that I have to keep it in permanent, so.
So Greenville County does have a buffer ordinance, but it applies to new developments, not to existing property.
I know, I'm just saying in this, there's nothing to slow that down, if the county wanted to just say, well, if it's a native tree canopy, then you.
There's an election.
There's a lot of checks and balances, like all the councils and, it's not just gonna all of a sudden happen.
Rick, would you rather have the word prioritize or not? Are you opposed to having the word incentivize instead of prioritize?
Well, just put both in there,
You want both?
prioritize and incentivize. Put both in. It means two different things. They're distinct.
Say
And I
that.
think
Consider instead of.
prioritize means you're giving it a rank.
Sit in the shower.
You incentivize it, that means you're giving it the support, but with it in other means,
Yeah.
rather than just making it a priority.
Jay was suggesting replace prioritize and incentivize with the word consider. Yeah, we consider.
I think I would vote to keep these two.
Keep
words.
those two, okay. Okay, I don't want to spend a whole lot more time on this. We've spent a good amount of discussion and been healthy, but I want to finish our plan. So everybody comfortable if we take a vote? If we take a vote on this, I don't think it's going to be unanimous, but I think it's going to pass by majority and we'll document it like we had the other several recommendations that were in that category.
Do we have a forum between here and online?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So everybody comfortable? I don't want to move forward if somebody wants to have another suggestion on
Just-
tweaking.
Do we have any more comments?
Any online comments?
Sure,
Trina?
I support everything Melanie said and the proposal. I also support the proposal through the lens of water quantity. Saluda Lake is the poster child in our watershed for decreased reservoir capacity due to accelerated sedimentation resulting primarily from upstream channel destabilization and erosion, due largely to loss of riparian canopy protection. Local governments can prioritize these things as they develop land development regulations. Some already are.
All right, let's just do a vote. All in favor of this recommendation, the bold part, and we'll tweak the language a little bit to reflect the discussion. Raise your hand. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then online folks, please let us know if you're good. So raise your hand or put in the chat. Six online, 15 then. 15 for, and if you're opposed to it, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. You're not voting?
No, I told you I'm not voting.
You're not voting. Okay, that's all right, Miss Dent. You're abstaining. So I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm not against this, I don't like the way it's written. And I'm scared about how Lexington County might weaponize it, just like Casey mentioned.
I'll vote. That is-
15 for, 5 against. We'll write it up. All right. One other item I want to mention is something Jamie brought up to me yesterday or today, which is something I think we'll just add a note.
Yes.
But it has to do with Lake Murray and West Columbia's.
Yes, City of West Columbia is currently undergoing an expansion. We're part of that Lake Murray plant. They have 2 plants. One's on the lower Saluda River intake that does in city proper and some of the surrounding areas. And then the Lake Murray plant that is currently rated at I think it's now up to 24 MGD. It was 22.5, and they got a midterm expansion while they're doing the rest of it. They could probably go up to I think it's 35 million gallons a day. In the process of doing that, they expanded their FERC from 48 to 72. And their groundwater withdrawal, surface water withdrawal permit was I thought it was at 35. You mentioned 34, maybe I was confused on those numbers, but they've gotten approval according to Andy's angle to go to 42 as part of the current plant expansion. And their surface water withdrawal was ahead of their FERC, and they've sort of got that now the FERC ahead of the surface water withdrawal because the DES that became complicated with expanding surface water withdrawal and projecting on a planning basis. I know that plan on the peak day does pull about you said it was about 25 or 26 between the two, but the Lake Murray plan alone, peak day has been 23 to 24 MGD. We're happy. The reason I know that is we're happy. So our peak day has been a little bit over 12 million gallons a couple of times. And so I just felt like I was just selfishly thinking about that footnote that I asked about our future FERC, which does not have a surface water withdrawal attached to it because you have to use those within a couple of years. It's just a long-term planning phase. Felt like it probably needed to be footnoted because we're not there yet, but it should be included in the DEP report.
Yeah, that was something that, Hannah, how does it, so, he's mentioned FERC, they get approval from FERC. I went and looked at the watershed to see if the West Columbia plant's DES permit had been increased from 34 up to, you were saying 72?
40, 72, surface water, according to Andy, is supposed to be 42 now.
42.
And he indicated it was out of date.
Is this something that occurred in the past couple of years, the past couple of months?
No, it should have been, it should have been in the past couple of years, yes. I would think it was just months. Because we're 2 years into the expansion project, so we would have had it done before that CMAR launched, I would assume. I can find that out.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with if there's been an expansion in that permitting sense. Can look into that.
Okay.
Well, what I checked, I wanted to see what we had for our fully permitted registered scenario. I was concerned, well, did we way underestimate it based on whatever we had for the DES for, it was 34 in GD. Or whatever I put in my email. So if it's 72, that would change things a little bit.
So the FERC went from 48 to 72. The surface water withdrawal was 34, 35, and it's gone to 42. So
Did they write you a new permit for that additional amount with the new permit requirements, or did they modify the original?
I
And
wish-
Leanne may know that.
I wish I knew that.
Yeah.
I'm not as involved in that. I just pay the bills.
Yep.
So, and I can stir stuff up and I don't like it, so I don't really, I can find that out.
Well, I think what I want to clarify in the plan is what you suggested, a footnote to say, here's what we model, here's what the assumptions were at the time of
Right.
model, and here's how things may be changing.
Right.
During the next generation of planning, may incorporate them, whatever those new permit limits are. When we do additional model, but I want it to be clear now what was covered. As part of the modeling I've done a year ago, and what's the case right now, and what we need to consider when we look at it again in the future. So I may need your help.
Okay.
Jay, what facility was it? Leanne wants to know.
It's the City of West Columbia's Lake Murray. They call it Plant 2.
Did you hear that, Leanne?
I did, and I'm not sure. You said it was City of West Columbia. I don't know that we've gotten a modification request from them. So if they, I'll have to look into that.
Okay.
It was not my intention to tell them about it. Don't say it came from me.
All right, so again, we add a footnote in chapter 5 to explain what our assumptions were and what may need to be done in the future, as far as updated modeling.
But now, John, just in reality, even though those numbers are a bit different, the capacity of Murray is so
Yeah, it's
great, it shouldn't impact any runs.
No, it's not going to make any difference. There's still a minimum release from Murray, so we're not going to see any downstream impacts other than maybe, 1/10 of a CFS or something.
Yeah.
So it's not significant to the model and results.
Yeah.
But it is a big difference from what we may have in the or the high demand scenario and the permit and register scenario.
Yeah.
So we just want to reflect that. It's just something easy to forget about when we go to do updated modeling that, oh, the old model didn't have the increased permit or whatever. Okay, outside of those two items, there was nothing else specific that I wanted to mention with regard to the plan. Again, we've been getting additional comments. I think we're up to like 540 comments in our comment log now. 3/4 of them come from this side of the room over here. But I really appreciate the fact that they are reviewing it. That makes me feel good that people are reading it.
Just so you know, CDM Smith did Connecticut's entire state plan and they only got 1,800 total comments, so just saying. You're killing it.
The Lower Savannah South Comanche's given me, I think, a total of maybe 3 comments so far on chapters. So,
Oh my God.
but they haven't seen all the chapters. So is there anything else anyone wants to bring up now on the plan while you still have the opportunity to offer up comments or suggestions that aren't that specific necessarily, more big picture things?
So in the executive summary, is
We're gonna get to
it?
the executive
I know,
summary.
but in the executive summary, has anybody else wrote that it's hard to separate quantity from quality? Because the argument throughout this, since day one, is that you've had the people that restrict quantity, you had the people that were quantity and quality, which I respect. But I think that people need to know that it is very hard to separate those two things when you're talking about a river basin.
Yeah, in the broad Edisto PD executive summaries, I don't think there's a statement that said it's been a challenge to separate these two.
Then we need to be the first one.
I support that.
Okay.
See, look at that.
Let me mention that. And that's something I did add a slide to, we'll talk about this later, the public meeting presentation. Emphasizing the fact that we're here to talk about quantity, not quality. And that would be an appropriate place to say, they're interrelated, but we're trying to focus as much as we can on quantity for this phase.
I mean, because that's been the hardest discussion in this group is between those two things, so.
Okay. Anything else anybody wants to talk about on the plan chapters themselves, while we have the benefit of the full RBC here?
So we've got every chapter and has every chapter already been revised based on comments? So, and
Yeah,
so we've got to revise all of the chapters and the executive summary. So next Friday, right? Should add to review and provide any last comments.
Yes, correct. What I sent out to you most recently covers everybody's comments except Robert's been reviewing a few of them and providing a few additional comments. And I haven't looked at all of them, and again, Amy started to review them. There's nothing, they're mainly wording changes or suggestions for improvement of the words. There's nothing that's changing content or, hey, we really missed the boat here. Can you rewrite this paragraph, right? Fair statement, okay.
It's all editorial.
Editorial, yeah. I will mention there's a couple comments, if you look closely at the comment log that we haven't addressed yet. And Catherine, I think a lot of those may have been yours, and there's just a few I need to follow up on. And let me just show you the examples. You had a number of comments in chapter 1 when we review the status of other plans. And you were suggesting, check with Rebecca and Melanie about the status of some of the watershed-based plans.
Yeah, essentially, they just seemed like a summary, and I wanted there to be like a tie of like, well, first, some of them didn't even have like an update of where they stand today, like, are they being implemented, or are they just sitting on a shelf growing dust? And then just why does it matter? Like, I wanted that like sentence or two that just like ties it back to why you even bothered putting it in here? Like, what does it matter as it pertains to this plan?
Yeah, okay, and I have added a little bit of language to try to explain why are we doing this. First of all, the framework.
Like a literature review almost, you know?
But yeah, why it's important. But I do need to, the point of me bringing this up is I need to follow up with Rebecca and Melanie and some of the authors of those watershed-based plans to see what's going on in the last 8 years since they wrote it, anything, whatever. So we'll try to add an update to that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
There's just a few others that we haven't addressed yet. We have more to deal with, updating some figures or trying to find some more current information, like on hydro facility flows. Actually, Hannah, the spreadsheet you just sent me a couple weeks ago that had all the 2023 withdrawals in them. This is for the state water plan. Did that have hydro numbers in it?
It should.
Okay, so I can use that to update one of our tables in chapter 3. Okay, there's nothing else on the plan itself, the chapters that I've circulated. I'm going to move on to the executive summary. Am I good with that?
Mhm.
Okay, the executive summary, let's see. I think we got most of the comments from Casey and Catherine on the executive summary. Actually, did you comment on executive summary? I know Catherine did. Yeah, I think you did. Yeah, that's right. You did. That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, call them.
Yeah, we have a call about it. Yeah, how can I forget? We've updated it, and the one I circulated recently includes addressing Catherine and Casey's comments. Has other RBC members had a chance to review it?
Did you get my comment?
I got your comment.
Did you?
Yeah. Other folks reviewed it. Do you have any comments, or do you still want to have the opportunity to send comments?
Well, I think I discussed this last time. I just think it's overall too long, but other than that.
Yeah. Do you think it's too long still, given the fact that we're gonna have this 2-page summary sheet?
So I'm fine with it as is. I'm not going to make any additional comments.
Okay.
When do we get the 2-page?
I've already sent it out, but we're gonna look at it here.
Oh, it's already out. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen
And
that.
I'm gonna pull it up here in just a second or two. So no other comments on the executive summary? Everybody's comfortable with it? I mean, Jeff, I wrote down your comment that somewhere we should mention that it's a difficult endeavor to try to separate quality and quantity. We can work that in.
Jeff and I both read it. We don't oppose it. Jeff is my.
He's your,
Yeah.
yours, notice, yeah,
We
okay.
didn't get any good farm photos from folks that promised they'd send me some, so saying. I did get a really nice Table Rock photo.
Yeah.
From somebody who chooses to remain anonymous.
Yeah.
Thank you to that person.
Sure you don't want any nice ag photos in there, Thompson? Yeah, okay.
Let me see if I can find some stock photos.
Isn't it?
Okay.
Which is nice.
If anyone has any other photos they'd like to consider putting in here to mix it up a little bit, we're happy to replace.
the conservation district. See.
And we have added little captions to the bottom of the photos where we can. Just to help explain what they are, there's table lines. Okay, we'll accept any other comments on the executive summary until next Friday, the 28th. Moving on. 2-page summary sheet. How many have read the 2-page summary sheet?
I gotta be honest here,
It's the easiest one to read. It's just 2 pages.
When did you send it down this recent? When did you send that out, John?
Last week, maybe last
I
Friday.
did, I didn't see it.
I got
so.
314 that you sent a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I apologize. I've overwhelmed you, I think, by sending a lot of stuff last week. Tried to spread it out a little bit, but I'm not surprised if we missed something because there's so much there.
Yeah, it's on 314.
Yeah, Catherine provided some very good comments. Catherine Kirk's already addressed those comments in the version that I'm showing here.
Oh, okay, great.
I think he addressed almost all of them. There was a few that we left as is, and we may need to talk to you about it. And one of them was, like you mentioned, supply side strategies. Do we even need to mention the fact that we didn't recommend any supply side strategies?
Yeah, I see that only because I think some of my comments added text and I appreciate our desire to have this be 2 pages. So I was like, well, this is something we didn't do, so maybe it's not worthy of the first 2 pages. Because I thought some of my edits would add. So that was kind of my thoughts there.
Yeah, I think Kirk and I didn't, he said we talk about it, but he left it and I agreed with him leaving it because I think it's important to note that if we considered them, we don't necessarily need them based on our modeling scenarios. I just didn't want to leave it out. People might think that, what did you have demand side strategies? Why don't you even talk about supply side? So.
Yeah, so it sounds like everything fit then.
So far, everything else is good. Yeah, based on how he's
It's
made
tight.
adjustments, you know.
The narrow margins,
Yeah.
hard to see.
So I will send out this updated version. There's just some minor changes and rewording to make it read a little better based on Catherine's comments. But we'll certainly accept any additional comments. The big picture is I just want to make sure everybody agreed that what we're highlighting here is what you think is the most important to highlight in 2 pages.
So I've got some edits I'll give you. The only one that I had and that I think probably warrants any discussion is under the planning and process recommendation, I think in other places. I am concerned that anytime we use, and it had to do with the interbasin RBC group, that in people's minds in our state, as soon as they hear interbasin, they think interbasin transfer. And that is an immediate no.
Just did.
Yep. And so I don't know if it's multi-basin or something else, but that interbasin term is
It's scarred for life.
it's polarizing.
Maybe multiple, I think like that any multiple. Multi-basin, yeah, multi-basin.
Tri-basin.
And I think interbasin's in the framework.
Well, that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
say. It's defined in the framework. The
Yeah.
term IRC, Interbasin River Council, is a framework defined term. So I'm hesitant to change it, but if there is.
Then
People
they
are
need
gonna
to
read
say
this
framework
And having read the
defined.
framework, I wouldn't even think about that being an issue, honestly.
Yeah,
How dare you?
I'm sorry, it's reality. People aren't gonna go read that framework. I know
I was
that.
about to say, it's been a great guideline, but it's not a Bible. I'm just saying, people will read that and they will read what it is over here, that they just put transfer after interbasin. Because when somebody reads that, they will read, oh, they want to take water from Upper Savannah and bring it in, or Broad, and granted, we all know that those things occur. And that will make that even more polarized.
I mean, it's up to you all. If you want to soften it, change it, reword it, you can.
How would you thought?
Where did the term interbasin river council, is that in some state legal?
That's in the state water planning framework.
State
It's not a legal
water-
thing, it's just, that's how they refer to it, and that's how we refer to it for the past 5 years.
So if you change that name, maybe the council itself would have to do it, or whenever it gets formed, it's not even formed yet, right?
No, there's not one. There is a Upper Savannah, Lower Savannah, South Hatchie Inter Basin Council. In fact, we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago. So
That's what it's called.
that's what it's called, yeah.
And I'm fine with when it forms, that's what it's called. I just don't know if we want that in this executive summary.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean.
They'll probably spend time explaining to the public or all that.
We can just say there should be an upstate multi RBC group.
Multi-basin council or.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't see the harm in using different terminology in the summary. So, yeah, include that as part of your suggestions that you send to us. Tweak it.
Yeah, I think I just said I have issues with it.
Okay, well, that'll make us remember.
It's
that.
flagged.
That's not your only issue.
No, it's not.
Again, big picture, is there, we've had to pick and choose which recommendations we highlight as example recommendations. I guess I was looking for your all feedback. Did we leave any out that you think are the most important? So for example, technical recommendations, we've listed the one about you've identified numerous strategies to reduce sediment loading. Some of those include stream bank restoration, riparian buffers, and green infrastructure. That's not the whole recommendation. That's just a very condensed version of it. We've got a recommendation about the future modeling to account for uncertainties. Future planning should include evaluation of surface water quality trends, including nutrient loading and sedimentation. And then the one related to developing a mesoscale network of weather and climate stations. So those are the 4 technical recommendations we've highlighted. Did I leave out any that you think are the most important for the 2-page summary? No, okay. Regulatory legislative policy ones. We've got the one here about reasonable use criteria for new surface water withdrawals. Got the general one that the Broad also had about needs some type of improvement to be enforceable and effective. Got the one that Melanie suggested on reviewing MIS, basing them on best available science. And then got one here about water utilities within watersheds to consider regionalization opportunities. And I know, Catherine, you had a question. What does within watersheds mean? We talked about that in one meeting, and KC, I think you suggested we just use that terminology within watersheds. I kind of agree with Catherine.
Everyone is in a watershed.
Yeah, it depends on what level of watershed you're looking at.
Yeah.
But I think the point there was you're not suggesting regionalization for the whole Saluda Basin. You're suggesting regionalization for folks that are kind of contiguous.
Yeah,
or
okay.
only,
How do we say that better?
yeah, I don't know how to say it.
Water utilities,
And maybe you don't want to
The
highlight that
same.
on the 2-page summary sheet. Maybe that's not.
In a Huck 10.
within the same basin?
Why don't you put water utilities should consider regionalization opportunities? Because it doesn't matter, obviously, we're in 3 basins. Right. And to tell a water utility that they shouldn't work or collaborate or partner with people in other basins is a little bit crazy. And so I would take out the within. I would just change water utilities should consider regionalization opportunities.
Yeah.
And discussion.
Ours is dictated by 208. You can't get away from it.
I agree with that. Yeah, I feel like we had this discussion though, and there was emphasis coming from our chair that we didn't want to just have it broad, you wanted it to be more narrow, but am I misremembering?
No, no. So you're not misremembering because we've gone down these paths before. Sometimes successfully and sometimes they have failed miserably. I'll go back and look at how it's worded. How it was originally and I know the concern of other water utilities in our basin, especially smaller ones. When they hear regionalization, they are like, oh, somebody big wants to swallow us up and take us over, even if they're a well-run, appropriate organization. And so that's how that is. Again, regionalization is a polarizing term in our world.
So should consider it's not shall. And
Yeah, and I think originally it was something more.
there's there are small utilities that I would. That is a regional provider I would not want to deal with. One is you. I mean, you guys do a good job. I mean, that wasn't a negative.
Yeah.
But there's some out there that should, there's some that shall, that's not.
Yeah.
But I think and I think you're right, there are a lot of small utilities that think that the regionalization takes away their ability, but if you start framing it as partnership and collaboration, which we have been doing.
Yeah.
They still have their own, they just own the water. So, well.
So the two words, partnership and collaboration, should that not take the place of regionalization? Could you not just substitute those two words? Regionalization and take
That's what we
the,
say now, so.
Yeah, if you're comfortable with that, that is by far more accurate of what I see occur.
Well, you Barnes and Greenville are partnering. on it.
Absolutely.
So are y'all suggesting we actually change the recommendation as it appears? in
Well, that's what I was
document?
about to say. We'll have to go back and see how that is. Can you get to it?
Yeah.
Just one of the ones I missed.
Well, maybe
I
you
think it's the one you suggested.
Well, copy every chapter, but for some reason I didn't copy 9. Let me see if I got you. We had a copy of it in our last meeting folder here on your desktop, Casey. No, didn't.
You sent it out, I think, on the 14th. Yes, you sent it out on the 14th, so if you can check your sent emails.
Well, this is Casey's
I was gonna
computer.
say,
No.
you don't wanna go looking at mine.
Yeah, just no, all this I just brought
There
over.
are some legal ramifications y'all don't wanna be brought into.
I think the only thing in there is just, I don't know why I was.
No, just
That was Casey trying to narrow the focus. So I'll get with Casey and we'll see if we come up with language. So we may tweak that. The theme of the recommendation is still gonna be the same, but if we want to just switch it to like partnership and collaboration instead of regionalization, maybe we do that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
I was about to say, as long as
The recommendation is, as currently in chapter 9. Is water utilities within watersheds should consider regionalization opportunities. It's almost
okay.
verbatim. And then it says regionalization is one tool to better manage the availability of water resources and build resilience.
So change regionalization to
Partnership, collaboration.
Yep.
Can we take out the within?
I think that's a reasonable.
Yeah.
suggestion.
I'm good with that.
Okay. We will tweak the recommendation then to do that and
Within watersheds, take out both
it'll
within
be a
watersheds.
change
Yeah.
in all 3 documents. It's the executive summary, the 2-page summary sheet, and the plan.
If we do that, then we almost need to revote or ask for consensus because it was voted upon, and so now it might not need a vote if there's consensus.
Yeah, is anyone opposed to that change?
So the change would say water utilities should consider partnerships and what's the other one? Collaboration opportunity.
It means the same thing.
It does.
So, I mean, why would we revote? I mean, we can if you want to.
Well, no, I'm just saying, we voted last time because there was disagreement, so
Yeah.
now if we don't need to vote, then that language that says it passed by a majority.
Yeah, oh, that can go, okay,
Yeah.
I missed that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're good.
The recommendation passed by majority recommendation, that's the way it was.
So now are we comfortable saying
Consensus.
it passed with consensus?
Yes,
Or do we need to? Anybody online?
I disagree.
I was about
I'm
to
about
say,
to go
I'm
for the
almost
car.
positive that's the one you
You're
brought.
lucky there's so much space between the two of us right now.
I'm gonna go back and rewind.
Oh my God.
Okay, so whereas before we had a majority, now we have a consensus on the revised.
yes.
Yeah,
Good, okay.
go G.
Okay. All right, let me just go back to this really quick. Planning process recommendations, we highlighted 3 here. About organizing meetings of all RBCs, we may change to, multi-collaboration, river basin council, and then outreach and education. All right, well, that's.
I have one comment. So on key findings, bottom of the first page. The third one is over allocation. To me, when I read the executive summary, that stood out more than anything. Is that the basin is over allocated. It said that in 2070, we're under the high demand scenario, it's only like some portion of what's already been permitted. Something like 30% or something. And so it's like, obviously, yeah, we're over allocated. And so that says there may not always be enough water. Is that strong enough? That sounds like, oh, there's a possibility that if everyone used water to their full permitted capacity, that we'd still be okay. Because it says there may not always be enough water. Could we say there likely would not be? I mean, what is the?
They're likely that there will be enough water, because if Greenville's using the max amount they have out of there, we're using the max amount we have out of there. In other words, it's a disaster situation. If that's what they're using, is the max amount that we're permitted for, and it's never going to get hit by a water treatment plant. Or you've planned for it.
Well.
So is that strong enough? There may not always be enough water in every stream. If all users withdraw fully permitted.
Well, I mean, if we all withdraw fully permitted, it's gonna be a problem. But that's never, it may be a problem now.
I mean, it's so unlikely, but for me, it's like.
If you all pull fully, we're all screwed. That's why I hate the way it's permitted.
It may, but it,
You're never gonna pull the full amount out of it.
May, if you.
I was about to say, if you see construction going on at Stovall, then you could get worried, but. It can only do what, 75?
Yeah, and they're using about 35, so 30.
so again, I mean, and that's crazy because it's just ramping up Athens
Yeah,
and we're putting a downtown pump station so that we can supply everybody and
oh, so you're going the other way now?
we're gonna go both ways.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah, that's good to say.
So-
Sorry.
Well, Phil, I think we put May because, we're using past hydrology to model future demand.
So anything that the model says is a may, you would never
Yes.
go stronger. I mean, obviously it's a model and it says this, but all models can be wrong. And so you have
Right.
to soften all your language.
Right, so I think there's a hesitancy to say there will always, or there will not be enough water in every stream reach to satisfy all demands. I mean, we could go through a period of no droughts.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be.
That's the opposite extreme.
Yeah,
But so this seems to be like closer to the safe, it's too safe. I mean, there may not be, I mean, obviously there may not be. I'll give some suggested wording.
Okay.
About that.
Well, we do, if you read further, it says many ag users and even some water suppliers would likely experience shortages.
Right.
So we're kind of qualifying it there and saying. It's inherent, we're saying that based on past hydrology. If you used your fully permitted and registered amount, there would be shortages.
John, where are they? I'm sorry.
Just to finish my comment, I'll suggest a little bit more stronger wording provided to you.
Okay, sounds good.
I can't remember where the conversations are occurring. But where they're talking about it over allocation, they're kind of saying paper over allocation. And using that terminology. I don't know if that's in the water SC groups or in other RBCs. Where they're basically saying on paper, everything's over allocated, but the reality is. Folks can't physically do what their permits say, so.
Yeah, well, and we're trying to make the point too, and if Kirk's online, he might emphasize this, that when we're talking about a basin being over allocated, it's not the whole basin, it's just particular stream reaches.
Yep.
Based on whatever those permit and register demands are on that reach. It's not the whole basin, it's not, a lot of times it's not the main stem of a river either. There's plenty of water there because of all the storage in the reservoirs primarily, but it's generally more of those feeder tributaries, and headwater parts where we see these shortages in this.
Yeah, John, this is Kirk, and we had a good conversation, just the two of us last week, I think, and kind of started leaning toward or leaning away from saying things like the basin is over allocated, because that creates an impression that the entire basin is over allocated. When you actually map out where the shortages are likely, you see exactly what you just explained. It's on the headwaters of some smaller tributaries and things like that. It's not the entire basin. And so from a language point of view, I think we want to try to move away from saying things like the basin is over allocated, because that's wide open to misinterpretation. And so we in this in this text here, excuse me, we're trying to say, we focus on every stream reach, if all demands all the time. That's the issue. It's not the entire basin.
Yeah.
So is a bold over allocation an appropriate bullet? Is that what's being done on the other summaries, that's how they presented it?
We've generally had that type of bullet in the other summaries too, yeah. And well, since we've been working on the upper Savannah summary at the same time, we are trying to make them consistent when there's a consistent message to be told.
Have all the basins had that same message?
Yes, I mean, all the basins we've seen over allocation for this scenario. Not throughout the whole basin, but in parts of it, couldn't always meet demands 100% of the time. Yeah.
Melanie wanted to add the caveat of without consideration of leaving enough water to support designated uses for recreation and support of aquatic life.
Melanie, you're suggesting we add that statement to the over allocation statement so that it's not just referring to shortages for human needs, but also what we're leaving in the stream.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, that's a good distinction. We make that point in the plan itself. So if we can fit that in, we'll try to fit that in. I think that's an important thing to mention. Could you, Melanie, just send us a comment? I don't know if you have any other comments on the 2-pager, but just send that to me in an email so I make sure I don't miss it.
Yes, I can send you that next week.
Okay, and I like the language you had.
So, I have not read this and I apologize, but under over allocation, the last sentence, which is on the next page, while this scenario is unlikely, it is allowable. Allowable by whom?
Yes.
Or D.
Yes, yeah, watch it. I got to cheat out. Sending paperwork that still had DA.
It wouldn't violate any permit.
Yes.
Wouldn't have violated permit, right? Now, it's not even possible right now because most people don't have the infrastructure available to even do it.
So then again, should we modify that to say allowable under state law?
Uh,
So that the uninformed reader knows who is allowing it?
Good, clear.
yeah,
Yeah, good play, right?
yeah, we could do that, yeah.
All right, sir.
Can you scroll up a little bit because it really does, so that over allocation really doesn't address that is the permitted, or does it?
It does, yeah.
Okay,
Third line.
yeah, we use that terminology elsewhere. The permitted and registered amount.
It's under current and future use as well.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, any other two-page summary sheet comments?
Is it possible to just like turn around this relatively quickly, just so, like, in general, I think if you guys read nothing else, read this two-pager. I think it would be really great to get comments from everybody in this room and online, even if it's, I like it, I approve, just to really like, if you read nothing else. I know there's hundreds of pages you could read, but we all need to feel really good about this, and like, this is basically your briefing sheet next time you're talking to somebody about it, so. Think about it that way, like, does this have the information for you to just give the quick like elevator speech on, you know, what it is we've done for the last 2 years?
Yeah, we can, as we talked about, we can do very quickly, so by the end of the week, we'll send it back out.
Great.
All right. That is everything I wanted to cover on the.
Comments for the 2-pager are also deadline.
Till the 28th, yeah, everything on the 28th. Now, I mean, technically, when we go do our test of consensus and when we vote on the plan, we're really just voting on the plan and the executive summary. 2-pager is just additional material that may come in handy at public meeting, or somebody's going to do a presentation or talk to some group, you can hand out that 2-pager. You know, there may be an audience that you want to tweak the 2-pager for as well. So, you know, you'll have a copy of it. You could always change some of the content to better reflect the audience.
So if you were gonna change the language of that 2-pager, I mean, you know, so, to quick, for a specific audience that you're talking with, I mean, is there some sort of criteria what's allowable to change within that framework? I mean,
If you're speaking on behalf of the RBC to a group, yeah, I think you'd want to get the RBC's approval as to what you're changing. I don't think you want to just go rogue and do it yourself. Right. Yeah.
Isn't it likely though that if you, like you guys revising the 2-page based on comments, that you may have to review then the overall document to make sure that they match up? Right, like if we're gonna change something 2-page, it shouldn't be exactly the same. Came out of it.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah, you're not gonna change it so that it's in disagreement with what's in the plan.
you gotta make it, like everything is real.
Yeah.
So you gotta do that.
Yeah. Okay, so the only other agenda item we've got today, other than talking about schedule, is to do a quick review of the public meeting presentation. But let's go ahead and break for lunch, and we'll do that after lunch, if that's all right, 11:40, so. Online folks,
Break the law.
we're gonna break for lunch, and I think we could probably start talking in maybe 20 minutes. So right about noon or just shortly after noon, we'll reconvene and look at the public meeting slides. Okay. Last item I want to talk about today is preparing for the public meeting. We had discussion with PES about whether we're going to do one public meeting or 2 public meetings. We haven't decided anything yet. And the ESCO and the Broad, we did 2 public meetings, one to receive comments and present on the draft plan, And then the second one, roughly a month and a half later, after the final plan was out. I'd say attendance, especially at the second meeting, for the Broad and Yesto was pretty sparse. Not a lot of folks attending. For the Broad, we did one up in Spartanburg, and then we did the second one down at Columbia. In fact, I don't think there was any public attendees other than maybe Casey was there for the Broad meeting. For the PD, they just did one meeting, correct, Tom? And they're not going to do a second meeting. They did receive a handful of comments from public attending that meeting, but they decided for a couple of reasons. One, just to better manage the ES resources, and two, the fact they didn't have a lot of attendees, only to have one meeting. So in this basin, you know, we're a little spread out. We're probably going to have the first or a public meeting, the initial one up in Greenville. We've already got 3 dates that we're going to talk about where we can use Greenville Communities Room that they're reserved for us. We need to make the decision, do we want to push for having a second public meeting, perhaps down near Columbia, or one public meeting be enough? I don't think we have to decide that perhaps until we have the public meeting and see what the attendance is, but does anyone have thoughts about whether we should push for 2 public meetings or whether one public meeting may be enough?
So let me ask this question of you guys, when you did the first informational meetings, how well attended were they, the one in Columbia versus one in Greenville?
Like to recruit people.
Yeah, recruit people. Scott, are you online and listening? You could probably answer that better. I'm not sure I was at both meetings.
Yeah, I was, I think, at the one in Columbia, and you know, I think it was, attendance was much better. I don't know the exact number, but I think you had 25 to 30 or 20 to 30 interested stakeholders at that meeting. And if I'm not mistaken, I may have missed the second one because I was sick. I'm trying to remember. So I don't know if anybody else in this meeting attended that one, but I don't think I was at that one.
One at Roper Mountain. Or
Oh, I was there. Yeah. Okay. I'm getting my RBCs confused. I'm sorry. Yeah, I felt like there was, you know, it wasn't, I don't remember exact amounts, but it was significantly more people were going to the informational meetings than they were to the final public meetings where we introduced the plan.
That's been the case on all the votes.
Yes.
Anybody have any strong preferences either way, whether we do 1 or 2, or do you want to wait and see what the turnout is for the first one?
Let's see what turnout is. I would see, wait and see.
Can I add something?
I don't think turnout in Greenville's gonna be that big.
Yeah.
With the PD decision, the other factor was that there really wasn't anything substantive addressed by the comments that we missed in the plan, anything that was really big or glaring. The issue was mostly water quality comments, and the focus, there needs to be some water quality involved, and so you're basically gonna get the same comments over and over. So that was the reason why I decided not to go with the second one.
I mean, one reason to have 2 is just because of how this basin is spread out. We're not likely to get folks from Columbia driving up to Greenville and vice versa. So there may be rationale for having a second one in Columbia. But even then, if it's like the Broad, where we had one in the upstate and one down in Columbia, we didn't get anybody to attend the Columbia one other than KC came and brought RBC members. We talked too about maybe, well, could we record the public meeting or live stream it? That comes with its own issues potentially too. But we might consider recording it at least, perhaps not live streaming it and then posting it, a recording of it perhaps.
oh yeah, we didn't talk about that last week. I like the recording idea.
Yeah, I think I thought about that afterwards.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I think in general, we have an opportunity to think a little bit differently about how it's advertised. Like, I have no idea how thoughtful other RBC councils have been about getting the word out beyond what DES is already doing. But, you know, the onus is kind of on all of us to post it, repost it, get the word out, like, as soon as we pick on a date, we all need to, do that, and then I said this last time, and I feel this way again, but I think we need to learn from the poor attendance at previous ones and come up with a different way to advertise, and maybe it's offering a giveaway or doing something cool, and I don't know, what we can do in that space and who has maybe budget to do something like that, Jeff Boss. But do like something fun, like, it doesn't have to be a day on North Saluda Basin, just like a fun giveaway that gets people to, I don't know, disengage. We have to do this all the time. I literally do public engagement for work, and you have to incentivize, people have busy lives. They can't just like show up to some meeting. So I feel strongly about that, but I don't know what we got in our abilities to do that.
I'm just feeling cash falling out of my pockets right now.
Oh, my. You have community engagement budgets, I know that. I could probably get something, I'll volunteer Bolton and Mink to donate something fun. But I think it'd be fun if it was like a raffle or something at the, at the end, get people to stay through. Raffle off an item or something too at the end, I don't know. What we got?
I think it's twofold, advertising, how do we advertise it, and how do we incentivize people to come? I think that's big, and you think we're the advocates here. That's part of our charge, to be on this basis, to be an advocate for this. So I think it's up to who's involved to try to, whatever we decide, one meeting or two meetings, try to drive, attendance as best we can through all of our individual efforts, but also the other associations that we have with other groups like Friends of the Reed River, and other things like that. I'm certainly speak for the Native Plant Society, we can, do our part with getting that word out to our constituents. And just do all we can to try to, again, do two legs of the stool, or how do we incentivize people to come, and how do we do things differently?
Okay, well, keep that in mind, and we can talk about it during our next meeting next month, which will be virtual.
We're not deciding until.
We're gonna pick a day. We're gonna try to pick a day today.
Okay.
But whether we have a second meeting, we're gonna decide later, and we want to incentivize it and how we advertise it. I think we can decide at our next meeting, because it's not going to be posted. The public meeting is not going to be advertised until after our next meeting.
Why?
Because we want to make sure we get a vote on the plan, and then we release the plan after our next meeting. I mean, I guess technically we could advertise it ahead of that.
Like a little
if we know
save the
the
date or
date.
something.
Yeah, but generally that's how we've done it before. We've always advertised it immediately after we've done our test of consensus. We've prepared the final plan. We release it. Okay, we're gonna go through the draft public meeting slides. As we go through it, I know last time when Kirk was moderating or facilitating, he asked for some volunteers who might want to speak. I think Catherine, you said you'd volunteer. Casey, you'll probably open us up. I think Thompson, you might have volunteered, right, to be a.
volunteer?
Okay. well,
I think we did. I remember that.
Maybe somebody volunteered you.
I'll back you up, John.
Yeah, is Kevin online? Kevin, I think volunteered. Yeah, and maybe somebody volunteered you, Jeff. Your name's here. Many others want a speaking part as we go through these slides. Think about, yeah, I'm comfortable speaking to this group of slides or these two slides.
Is there anything about quality I can talk about?
All of it.
All of it. Yeah.
All of it.
So think about that.
That prompt the question.
I'd be willing to volunteer as well.
Okay, good. So let me pull up the actual slides. So what I'm going to show you is what I sent out, and it's generally the same structure and kind of same information that we've used in the other river basins. It doesn't mean that you have to use this, though. If you want to go a different way, you're more than welcome to. If you want it to be more conversational, less information on the screen, that's up to you. This is just a suggestion to kind of get what we think is the most important information out there, but obviously open to your ideas, especially if you're a speaker and you want to do something a little differently. That's great. All for it.
And this meeting is to introduce people to the plan and solicit comments, correct?
That's the point of the meeting, correct, yep. After you do this 40-minute to an hour presentation, then Tom moderates a comment and basically a comment session. And ideally, we'll have RBC members there who are not only speakers, but not in a speaking role. And if there's comments that the RBC members can address, then great.
How big is the room? We don't know that yet.
Well, we're probably gonna use Jeff's community room.
It's about twice as big as this room.
Yeah, it's certainly gonna be big enough based on the turnout we've seen in the other councils.
I will say, REWA would be happy to open their innovation campus too. There's sheep, there's there's just things to see that the public might enjoy. Just as a backup,
So there's sheep,
we have sheep under our solar fields, just, you could advertise things that people might be interested in.
like a sheep giveaway?
No giveaway.
What, oh, trim those sheep. Have wool,
Well,
a wool
we'll get
giveaway.
on that.
Shear, not trim, shear
Just
those.
another opportunity of.
When does your path open?
In May.
When? Do you have a hard date yet?
May 3rd is the grand opening. So we also have a nature trail that's open to the public that will run through our campus, so. We have 3 different very large meeting spaces, it's a very innovative campus, there's stuff to see and do.
There's a cool mural.
I'm not taking from Greenville Water. It's
No,
another opportunity.
You guys got a big space over there.
Okay, you might. I know DS may be looking for some space too for the listening session, so I don't know if Joe online. Joe King?
No, no more.
Okay, Hannah, you might mention what Kaylee just said to Joe.
Yeah, that'd be
I
great.
think Joe may be reaching out to you, Jeff, and Jeff, about your space, but he probably isn't aware that you've got a nice new space. Okay,
Not a good idea.
all right. Idea is that Casey would open up the public meeting. So Casey, you'd be doing an introduction saying, here's what our agenda is, here's what we're going to tell you today. We would introduce the RBC members present would stand up. You would talk about the fact that we've got 8 interest categories. We represent a broad range of water uses throughout the basin, yada, yada, yada. And then you would turn it over to, Scott has typically done this part, or someone with DES. They can do an overview of the planning process, and y'all have probably seen these slides and other presentations, but just goes through the history of planning framework. The fact that each RBC has multiple water interest categories, a quick update on where we stand on the scale and the state water plan itself. They like to highlight the fact that there's been stakeholder participation over the last decade through all of these different initiatives, PPAC, RBCs, Water SC, modeling, so forth. And then introduction to what is a river basin plan. Again, Scott has usually covered this. And because a lot of the comments we've received at these meetings have been focused on quality, we thought maybe it's important to have a separate. By the way, what you're going to hear today is focused on quantity. You may have specific quality related comments you'd like to make. We'll certainly accept those comments, but quality is something that's not being addressed directly in this phase. Maybe it will be in the next phase.
Real quick, some of those first few slides you just mentioned, I think I really like the slide that you've shared with me, and I don't know if everybody's seen it, but it's more
The
of
timeline.
the timeline, because
Yeah.
I think that it's just a little bit easier for people to grasp.
Yeah.
And I made a second slide to complement that timeline that goes with the water SC process. So I'll send that to you, and then you can, I just think that's easy, it's easier for people to just like see it, right? All that in front of them, like how did this work?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, and Scott usually also says, this was a 2-year process divided into 4 phases. Here's the main things that the RBC addressed during each phase. It's a quick review of that. And then he turns it over to somebody else, somebody on the RBC typically, and we go through highlights of the plan. This is the
So
slide.
this slide, should that be Saluda instead of Upper Savannah?
It should be, yes.
Okay.
We just did the same presentation for Upper Savannah. What was that?
Look at the pace.
Yeah, just, I didn't update everything.
No reason in the world.
Thanks for pointing that out. So we say, here's what we're gonna review, which are demands, water availability assessment, touch on stream flow ecology. Talk a little bit about those extended drought scenarios, water management strategies, recommendations, implementation, issues and challenges. Eddie, you're all okay if we show the Saluda hydro there, right? Okay, I want to make sure. I knew there was some limitations on what pictures we could take of Saluda hydro, but that's kind of just a side shot. I think it's important to, go over the vision statement and the goals. So, this could be, Catherine, if you want to start the highlights and, here's what we're going to tell you, here's our vision, here's our goals. Then we get into just a high level demands summary, current demands, groundwater, surface water, what each sector is. What does that mean? This was a suggestion from some of their councils to kind of frame it. So we've used the old standard Olympic sized swimming pool reference here for at least public supply. And then to show how little ag and golf courses are. In this case, we show golf course. We say, well, a typical hose is 15 gallons per minute. Golf courses, all of them combined, only use 28 garden hoses running in one day.
Does that mean like 24 hours?
24 hours, yeah. Again, it's just a way to make it a little more meaningful. People don't know what 1 million gallons is necessarily. And the broad, I think we use the Gaffney Peachoid as the example instead of a Olympic-sized swimming pool, but we're not in the broad, so. Okay, and throughout here, we've kind of got key findings highlighted. Here's one of the key findings. Only 28% of the Furman registered surface water is currently being used in the basin. We kind of show the math right here. And then we talk a little bit about the future demands and demand scenarios that we looked at going out 50 years or so in the future to 2070, and what our assumptions were for growth under those two demand scenarios, moderate and then the high demand scenario. So this takes a little bit of explanation. All right, and then this point usually gets turned over, and in the past I've done this part, but more than happy to not talk and have somebody else speak on this if they'd like to, but it's just a summary of what did we learn from the modeling. So we introduced the model, how it's used, and then we talk about results. This is kind of a wordy slide, but we're trying to just get across the key findings, surface water key findings. Primarily being that low risk to water supply shortages under current use scenario. The fact that the basins, the basin are over allocated. If everybody were to withdraw to fully permitted registered amount and without considering in-stream flow requirements. We qualify that by saying that on a likely scenario. This third bullet's kind of just meant to summarize the high demand scenario that, we don't expect there to be any significant shortages. They're adequate to meet the increased demands through our planning horizon. The fourth one just qualifies that a little bit by saying there are a few potential areas of concerns, small ag users, small golf courses, or some golf courses under the high demand scenario. Okay, then we've got a couple slides that highlight the fact we weren't just looking at needs for man, but also how much we leave in the stream. So we've kind of got a summary, 2 slides summarizing the stream flow ecology relationship work. I think, maybe this would be Kevin or Melanie, somebody that's, perhaps from environmental or recreational interest categories. Here we just say what the key finding is that generally using our moderate demand scenario, low risk. Actually, I'm not sure why we have moderate here. This is supposed to be high demand. That's what we're focusing on. I'll change that. But at one location on the Reedy River, mean daily flow for This is the UIF scenario, results in water at risk in terms of fish species richness. I need to double check these key findings, make sure that's what we've highlighted in our report, but point here would be that we just touch on the highlights of the stream flow ecology relationship, kind of boil it down so it's in simple terms.
John, are there a lot of questions asked during the session?
Generally, no. Questions are usually held till the end. Yeah.
Okay. Then sort of try to put everybody on a time limit, 4, 5, 6 minutes, you know.
Yep.
So keep it
moving.
moving.
Yeah, yeah. And it's generally taken about 50 minutes to an hour to keep, having 6 different presenters or so and keep moving.
John, for that slide with the fish, I think one of the, and I don't want to speak for folks who are more passionate about this, but I think one of the biggest gaps in our data analysis for us was not having that Blue Ridge data for this. And so it might be worth acknowledging that on this slide.
Yeah, good point. Okay, we've got 2 slides to just demonstrate that we looked outside of historical hydrology to see how resilient the basin was in terms of a more severe drought, more severe droughts than we've seen in the period of record. So we try to explain in simple terms how we did that and why we did that.
So John, help me on that last slide. It says 3 extended scenarios tested and only has 2 listed. I don't remember what we did.
Yeah, this is, let me change that because this was another thing that we did in the upper Savannah and we used a similar slide. We had 3 scenarios in the upper Savannah and in this one, I think we only had 2 and I just forgot to change the 2 to a 3. Key findings of that analysis is that we did see some storage. See, results show reservoir storage amount impacts as compared to baseline hydrology. In the first scenario, and that's what these graphs show here, it's after a long repeating drought, 18 years, where you would see the North Saluda Reservoir finally draw down. The likelihood of having a 2007, 2008 drought repeated for 18 years is very low. So it shows that there's a lot of resilience, a lot of storage in the basin.
What day of the week did y'all put this, have had the others on?
We'd like to do these on Tuesdays or Thursdays ideally, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Tuesdays are good days, Thursdays all, these kids are playing so much ball and all right now, there's a lot of stuff going on, you know.
Yeah.
We're gonna conflict with something. That's the hard part.
Tuesday seems to be the slowest day of the week for people.
Yeah.
Tuesday's also Greenville County Council meetings, so we're gonna have to decide what we're.
They meet every Tuesday?
Every other, but the 2 Tuesdays we picked are on council days, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're just gonna have to decide what we're.
I got a calendar, we'll talk about that in a minute, what some of the options are. All right, so we got a slide on the surface water management strategies that we've considered, both for municipal and ag as examples. Be nice if, I don't know, Jeff or somebody talk to this and Thompson, if you don't mind getting up and just saying ag's minor user in the basin, but we try to use water efficiently. There's a number of strategies depending on what the crop is or who the grower is that we can use, and just touching on a couple of them just as examples would be very useful. Yep.
You don't do reclaimed water right now.
Reclaimed water what?
The reclaimed water program you have.
We do irrigation on campus with reclaimed water, but not like a formal reclaimed water program yet. But we do it in our water features.
And if you want to get up and just say something short about that, you're more than welcome to. How much Greenville Water wants to give it reclaimed water?
I've offered to let it have our easement all the way back to Kiwi.
Okay, then we move from water management strategies to recommendations, and like in the two-page summary sheet, we've tried to pull in what we thought were perhaps some of the more meaningful recommendations. Here's some example technical and program recommendations. First one's looking at future model uncertainties. Second one is acknowledging that we would like to look at certain quality-related issues in future phases of planning. Third one is a recommendation to be able to support better climate data collection. Planning process recommendations, same ones we saw on the two-page summary sheet, and in coordination of all RBC meetings, the collaborative River Basin Council of the Upstate, perhaps, and then education and outreach. Policy, legislative, regulatory. We'll update the language on that first one to match whatever we end up with, which is got written down here. Reasonable use, enforceable and effective regulation. Identified issues, challenges, and threats. Talk about the fact that surface water resources are over allocated in certain parts of the basin. I think it's important to acknowledge that that 14-mile stretch is hydrologically impaired.
So for that first bullet, should that not explicitly say surface water resources in certain parts of the basin?
Yeah, I think that's more consistent with the message we were trying to say now. So I think we need to update that. That's a good point. Okay, the third one, we've kind of pointed this out in most of the river basin plans we've done the presentation at the request of RBC members, is that there's so few new surface water permits in the basin. Most of them are grandfathered, so most of the, if not all, of each basin, the permitted users are not subject to minimum stream flow requirements. It's just an issue. And the last one, some threats and uncertainties, the impacts of changing land use on flow, reservoir sedimentation, and more severe droughts. I don't know why this isn't highlighted, but there we go. All right, and then we introduce the fact that there's an implementation plan associated with this plan, and without going into all the details of the implementation plan, we just present the fact that there's 6 major objectives, and within each one of those objectives, we've got different actions and strategies that have been identified to help move those water management strategies or plan recommendations forward. And this is just meant to show the fact that we've got a detailed implementation table with actions and strategies and responsible parties and some identification of budget where possible. But we're certainly not going to speak to any detail on this. It's just an example. So that's the crux of it. Again, that's generally taken 45 minutes to an hour to go through as we rotate up and have different speakers. At this point, usually turn it over to Tom and he takes comments, and then we all wrap it up by saying, here's where you can go get the plan. We'll put a URL or a QR code there. We've got information on how people can submit comments over the next 30 days to Tom. So that's the gist of it. Knowing that, you have any suggestions? You need to hit the key findings. Want to do something, go in a different direction, do something completely different?
So the implementation to me seems to have a little too light in that it's just one slide. And I think this meeting, one of the things that this meeting would do is to encourage people that this is not a static document, that it is intended to be a living document. And there are actions, that we identify more, there are actions that the Basin Council is recommending be undertaken over the next 5 years and is seeking public participation in those actions. I think there should be a little more on implementation, especially encouraging people to participate in the implementation.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe like a call to action at the end, like.
Call to
what does
action at
this
the end, yeah.
Matter for you.
Put Robert in that implementation plan slot.
Great idea.
That's what it sounds like.
You'd be willing to talk about implementation?
Sure.
Awesome.
Voluntold is always a good thing.
I like that suggestion, though. I think that's good. Catherine, I'm gonna put your name up here. That's all right.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to add a slide too that just like, and it can be in that section that I'm speaking just about. Just like generally like humanizing this process, like what the state has gained by having over 5,000 hours of volunteer hours for this whole process. We can even try to quantify our own. But just, you know, I'll come up with something. We can just say +1 slide or whatever, and I'll figure it out.
Okay. And you know, we won't necessarily need slides for important topics that you want to talk about or a message you want to get across, like Frank from Columbia Water is a good example. He had a couple slides we developed for him, but he basically just spoke off the cuff and kind of, I won't say meandered, but everything he said was great. But, you know, he just said what he felt and it was appropriate. Just didn't have a slide for it. So whatever y'all want to say, as long as it's not in disagreement with the rest of the RBC, be useful. I'm going to put Kevin's name down here, but Melanie, is Melanie still on?
Mm-hmm.
Melanie, do you have any interest or desire to speak to any portion of this?
I would be glad to speak since I worked on policy recommendations. I'd be glad to speak on that.
Okay, I'll put your name for the recommendation section, and that can be multiple people or it can just be you.
Okay.
I'm putting Jeff and Thompson up here. Anybody have desire to speak to water demands?
I would volunteer for other to explain the SWAM model, how modeling works for the drought scenarios. That would be comfort zone for me.
Okay.
Either one of those.
You want to do both or just one?
Just were there, it looks like there are two different places in the.
They're back to back, I think, right?
Okay, well, yeah.
I think they were back to back.
We also need to make sure
Oh.
the date we choose works for all these people that
Right.
volunteer, so.
Yeah, actually, they're split up by Springfield Ecology, but we could move that around a little bit. Anybody want to do water demands, or Catherine, do you want to do vision goals and into water demands?
Sure.
Okay. All right, well, looks like we've got volunteers for every section as is, so that's good. We need to rearrange based on availability. We can certainly do that. We need to fix all these A's, they're not all A's.
Are you then the like, if anybody gets sick or whatever, are you the person that has to
Probably.
like pitch it?
Yeah, if I'm there.
So we'll make sure the date works for you.
Well, depending on when the date is, yeah, I have a vacation that I don't have much flexibility around scheduling because of other family members, and it might conflict, but that doesn't mean that Kurt or Grace might be able to fill in for me. Okay. This is still several months out, so we can talk about this again at our next meeting, which will likely be virtual, but we can run through it again and we can get additional ideas from you all if you have more ideas, but the feedback you've given me today is great, and I'm glad we've got some tentative speakers. Last thing I want to do is just quickly talk about what we're going to do at the next meeting, which is the test of consensus, and then schedule, and we'll look at the dates potentially we've looked at for the public meeting. Just go away here. Kirk may have reviewed this at the last meeting, but the planning framework talks about how we do the decision-making process, both for the draft plan and the final plan. Remember, we're going to do the draft plan on a 5-point scale. So at the next meeting, you will have seen the full River Basin plan. We're going to ask for you to give a 1 through 5 endorsement. 1, 2, and 3 meaning you endorse the plan just at different levels. 1's full endorsement. 2 is a few minor points of contention. 3 is, yeah, I've got some big problems with this, but I'm still endorsing it. Hopefully there are no 4 or 5s in the room. I think we would have figured that out by now. It's a reflex. I don't expect there's going to be 4 or 5.
Random reaction.
We just did this with the Upper Savannah, and there was all 1 and 2s, which is good. I think same thing in the PD. They had all 1 and 2s, right? Probably right, Tom?
Oh, yeah, it was all 1s and 2s.
Yeah, yeah. On the Broad, same thing, 1 and 2s. Edisto is a little different, but generally, most of the Edisto endorse the plan as well. That's just for the draft plan. Once we've addressed public comments, we do a final vote. It's just either I support this or I don't support this plan. And we'll do that probably in June or July after we're all done with the first public comment. Okay, calendar. Today's the 19th up at the top. I've given you till next Friday to give me any final comments on the chapters themselves. We'll use the following week to put it all together. We'll send you a draft plan, hopefully no later than the 7th of April. There's those water at sea listening sessions that week. On the 16th, we don't have much left to do other than to finalize the public meeting coordination and do a test of consensus vote on the plan. So that'll be on the 16th, and we'll probably just do that virtually as long as Casey and Catherine, you're okay with that? Well, I think that'll be a short meeting.
Hey, John, Melanie had a question
Yeah,
about
sorry, Melanie, go ahead.
a slide on the draft presentation about how we reached consensus. If there is one, or thought about including one.
Yeah, we can add one and talk about how we reach consensus and, you know, the concept of people being able to live with something. I think that's important. Catherine, that might be good to add to your part, like the visions and goals part, I think. So you comfortable speaking to that? Okay. Good recommendation, Melanie, thanks.
John, the April 18th is, I think it is a national holiday. But that's the day we're releasing the plan to the public. We might want to move that up a day. That's
Okay,
Good Friday.
yeah, I can read that around. I just tentatively put that, but
Either a day earlier or next week following.
what is the holiday?
Good Friday.
Oh, thanks. The Upper Savannah's got their public meeting on the 21st. That's going to be Tri-County Community College. In
That's
Anderson.
kind of what we landed on, yeah.
Yeah, if you're interested, that'll be the Monday, the 21st. So once we release the plan, we need 30 days before we can have the public meeting. So that brings us to several options. We talked with Casey and Catherine about these options at the last planning team meeting. We ended up with 3, and those were based also on availability of Greenville Waters Community Room. But we have other options, it seems like, so we might be able to expand this if needed. But I wanted to get you all feedback on what days work for the majority of the RBC. May 20th is the first date, it's a Tuesday. 29th is the second option, Thursday, and then moving into June the 3rd.
These are all evening.
These would all be 6 to 8 p.m. Correct. Yeah.
And I didn't think about this until today, but the 20th and the 3rd are both Greenville County Council meeting dates, which we're not going to be able to work around everybody's council meeting dates, but it's just worth noting.
Okay. Any of these dates look? Well, let me ask about the 20th. Anybody have problems with the 20th, especially folks that have volunteered to speak? Sounds like a good option. 29th. Anybody have problems with the 29th, especially folks that have offered to speak?
For real?
Okay, that's good too. June 3rd. That not work for anybody?
Do you know if city council people came to previous meetings? I know we would encourage them to come. But
No, we did get a senator come to one of the Edisto meetings. But I don't recall ever having any county or city council folks come. Be nice.
I think it depends, have they been formally invited? Like,
they're
again,
not gonna come if it's the same night as a council meeting, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know, Scott or Tom, do you think city council, county members are getting emails through the normal district?
It's possible some of them are, but I'm not sure.
I put the onus on us to do that. I don't think it's happening. Like, hi, this is who I am. I'm your constituent. You should come to this meeting. Like, it needs to be personalized, in my opinion.
I know when we do the when we first created the RBCs and was advertising and trying to get people to apply to be on the council, we did send letters to a lot of local and county governments, including county councils, as I recall.
Have they been getting the invites to the final presentations?
That's a good question. I'm trying to recall if in other basins we had tried to do that. I'm not sure.
I just did a quick survey of counties and some of the municipalities in the basin. And the ones I surveyed, all the counties, that'd be Greenville, Lawrence, Newberry, Lexington. Those counties meet on Tuesdays. The cities either meet Mondays or Tuesdays. None of them seem to meet on Thursday. So if we are trying to encourage local representatives, it would seem to me that Thursday would be a reasonable day.
Okay. All right, that might push us towards the 29th then. Catherine, was there a reason we didn't, or Casey, we didn't like the 22nd? It's an option, if you remember.
I will not be here.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
so when is Memorial Day again? Is it the?
27th.
27th, okay.
Which is why we avoided the 27th, because we thought it would be too close.
Yeah,
to
or
people's
26 is Memorial Day.
vacations.
Yeah, we waited 27th.
Yeah.
All right, well, sounds like maybe 29th would be the best day, so we'll target the 29th. Do you guys just want to go with Greenville's community room, or do you want to think about Haley's offer?
I mean, if that path is open, that'll be really a cool way to
Path will
draw
definitely be
people.
open. I
What's,
mean, we have a lot of incentives with touring things, the glass, solar, just think about it, really up to the group.
Like we could.
But I
offer-
know that we'll have space available too, with space.
what do you mean you have incentives or touring things? I mean,
Like from 5 to
We wanna
6.
incentivize the public to come in and not, just with the presentation, but they can actually come and engage with stuff too.
yeah. Okay,
Like we could do a 5:30 to 6 stroll to the mural. And then start it at 6. I mean,
Obviously, I have to ask,
yeah. Do you want to
These are
just
just ideas.
inquire?
but if it's something you wanna consider, I will go ask.
yeah, I think it's worth considering, so if you don't mind asking for 29th. And if that date's taken, maybe just ask for the 20th and 3rd, so we know those are options as well, but. We'll wait to hear back from you and then decide, should we use Jeff's facility or try your new facility?
Can you give us an idea of the people you can handle in your largest room? Just so we can compare.
The operations center holds our entire staff of 200. Like staff of REWA. That enough, Trish?
I doubt it.
That's big in there. It's really.
We'll turn people away if we have to.
And it has a balcony too, so there's also overflow. So the base floor can hold, 150, 200 people, but the upper balcony can hold additional
They
20
have
people.
fixed projectors and screens or monitors and everything. We don't.
Yeah, it's used for very big trainings, summits, workshops.
Good.
Well, if we're 35 people in the room, will it swallow us up?
It will
Echo.
swallow us up a little bit, but we can always organize it to be more intimate. Like, we don't have to lay out 200 chairs, we can make it not feel so big, but we also, because it's an afternoon meeting, we have 2 other spaces that I could just reserve. If we needed them, they're a little more small and intimate. On the same footprint on the campus.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'll look into it.
Yep. Appreciate that. All right, I think we're leaning towards the 29th. If you want to just mark your calendars and we'll confirm that before the next meeting, what we settle on and the location.
I'll throw out an idea just to Catherine, because Catherine mentioned incentives for coming. If we want to do door prizes, I have a 3 price used kayak that I'll probably never use again in a paddle.
I wanna win that. That sounds great.
I mean, it's a decent kayak, it'd probably be like, it's not one of the better ones, but it's, something that if you want, think about.
Everybody simmer on that. See if we can come up with enough giveaways, I think it would be fun.
I'd be afraid we'd have more giveaways than we have attendees, but.
I don't know.
That's always a good thing. It's a good thing.
John, Melanie also suggested inviting folks from Water SC and Legislative Water Committee.
Oh, yeah, it's a great idea. That's in fact quite an obvious idea. We shouldn't overlook. So thank you, Melanie. All right, I'll include an agenda item on the next meeting, the virtual meeting, to talk about how do we want to try to get the word out and doing some targeted invites perhaps, that maybe RBC members can help with, or we can suggest to DES to expand their distribution list. All right, Casey, that's all I had to cover. Anything else you'd like to cover?
Why? I don't think so. I guess this is our last time here in our facility, so we appreciate everybody coming down. It's been a pleasure to host this event most of the time, and sometimes that's most of the time.
Give Casey a round of applause for giving us all her seconds. Yeah, best match that we have with all our research.
That's definitely.
Actually, this by far is probably the best location for all the RBC meetings.
It has worked out well for all of us, so appreciate y'all coming here. Safe travels home. We'll meet online next time. And with that, I'll accept a motion that we adjourn this meeting. Second.
All right, Rob.
All those in favor? Any nays?
No.
All right, y'all have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, I don't want to do that here. I think